Okay, so let's take a look at similarity. Today I'm going to be working questions 33 through 40. Okay, we're going to expand a little bit more about similarity. Like I know we've talked about it before. We said similar triangles have to have the same angles and the sides are proportional. We're going to expand a little more on the proportional part. We're going to use that to solve for a side. I see here that I see two triangles. The triangle GHI, so the one on the top, the triangle GHI, I see the three sides. The measurements are 3, 6, and 8. And I see the triangle JKL, the other triangle, I see the measurements are Z, 9, and 12. I am told to begin with that triangle GHI is similar to triangle JKL. So as soon as that is said, I know the angles are equal and the sides are proportional. And then my assignment is solve for Z. Okay, so let's take a look. From the triangle that has the Z value, so the triangle JKL, let me look at the three measurements and let me go from small to large. So I know here the smallest side is Z. So let me make my three fractions. So I'm going to use Z. I'm going to use 9 and 12, right? I wrote the numerator on my three fractions. And then on the other triangle, the measurements are 3, 6, 8. So I'm going to have 3, 6, and 8. Now, we could have seen that Z was smaller than 9, but some people might say, well, how do you know? How do you know that's smaller? Because sometimes we cannot. Sometimes they're going to be pretty small. So this is how we do this. The measurement Z is the side LJ. What letters, like I'm talking about like the first, second, or third, what two letters are you using on the notation that was given at the beginning? Remember where it says on the top, it says triangle GHI is similar to triangle JKL. So looking at the second triangle, I'm looking at as in first, second, or third letter. Which letters are you using for that side? And then we will say the first and the third. I will literally come in my, I know in our case, we'll have to do it in our mind, but in my case, let me literally erase the middle letter. So I see that, oh yeah, that is the side JL. Let me erase the middle letter on the other one. Like I said, I literally can erase it. In our case, we might have to use our finger or mentally erase the middle letter. And I'm going to say JL is corresponding to the side GI. You guys see it there? JL or GI is corresponding to JL. We can use the notation, the beginning, for us to know what corresponds with, what goes with what. Another thing I could have seen is the side JK. Again, as in first, second, or third, I'm using the first and second letter. So the letters JK. So if I erase the third letter here, I'm going to say JK is corresponding with GH. So that is corresponding with this. And lastly, let me just say that IH, it's corresponding with LK. So notice my Z and my 3, you see I had the corresponding sides. My 9 and the 6, look, I have the corresponding sides. 12 and 8, I have the corresponding sides. Just keep in mind the values on the top, Z, 9, and 12, they all come from the same triangle. Okay, so this is how we place them. Like I said, it has to be with corresponding sides. Now, I remembered that I said the sides are proportional, so that means the fractions, if I use uh, simplifying, they should all simplify to the same thing. Like 9 over 6 and 12 over 8, I know they simplify to the same thing. Z over 3 should also simplify to the same thing. If I know the value of Z, I can double check. I can do also division, right? 12 divided by 8 is the same thing as 9 divided by 6, which is the same thing as Z divided by 3. If I know the value of Z, I can double check and I know. Another thing I said is cross multiplying. So to be honest, for this question, I'm only going to need two fractions. One of my fractions has to be the z over 3 for sure, because I'm solving for z. So my one of my fractions has to be z over 3. The other fraction, whichever one I want of the two that I have, either 9 over 6 or 12 over 8. It does not matter which one I choose. I'm actually going to choose the 9 over 6 just because my numbers are smaller. But if I choose 12 over 8, it is the same thing. Remember, I just need two fractions. And I remember we said cross multiplied. When I cross multiply, 6 times z has to be the same thing as 3 times 9. So I'm literally going to say that. I'm going to say 6 times z is equal to 27. My 27, because 9 times 3 or 3 times 9, however you guys want to call it, right? Because they equal the same thing. They should equal the same thing. I literally wrote equals in between them. So 6 times z is equal to 27. All right, to get the z by itself, let me divide both sides by 6. So z is equal to, let me use a calculator if necessary, 27 divided by 6, I get 4.5. Decimals are still numbers, so don't be afraid of them. Z is equal to 4.5. That's it. All we needed to do was two sides that were proportional. So two sides of one triangle and the corresponding two sides of the other triangle. We made our fractions, let them equal each other, cross multiplied, and solve for the variable. What I mean with variable, basically solve for the letter. All right, let's take a look at another example. Let's take a look at number 34. GHI is similar to JKL. We gotta solve for K. Okay, so let me choose two sides. I'm gonna choose K here. And then K is corresponding with 8. How do I know? Because I'm using the first two letters of each triangle. The side JK is corresponding with the side GH. Okay, another side that is proportional. Let's see. I'm gonna say 25 is proportional with 5. Right? I'm erasing the middle letter. So LJ or JL is corresponding to GI. And lastly, I'm gonna say that this 12 is corresponding with 60. Right? I did color code it so you guys can see what goes with what. From the triangle that has the letter. So the triangle that has K, I only need two values. One of my values, because I'm going to make two fractions, right? One of my values obviously has to be K, because I'm solving for K. The other value, like I'm choosing K. The other value, I can choose either 25 or 60. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to choose 25 just because the number is smaller. All right, so I'm going to use that. Again, I could do the third uh, fraction here. I could do the 60, but I only need two fractions. So why come up with a third? Okay, K is corresponding with 8. 25 is corresponding with 5. I'm just going to cross multiply. So 5 times K, which is 5K, it is equal to 25 times 8, which happens to be 200. Right, I cross multiplied. And I know for proportions, when I cross multiply, they have to equal the same thing. Therefore, they're equal to each other. So I have that 5 times K equals 200. Let me divide each side by 5. So that way I get 1K. Now 200 divided by 5, use a calculator if necessary, happens to be 40. All right, cool. The value of K is 40. Not bad. Let's take a look at another question here, number 35. Now here, I have two triangles that are similar. Triangle QRS is similar to triangle TUV, but now in this case, I have to solve for two letters. Solve for Y and Z. Okay, so basically I'm gonna do what I just did on the previous questions. I'm gonna do it twice. What I'm gonna do, let me see what sides are proportional here. I'm gonna color code them. The side SQ. When I look at the here, I'm gonna use the first and third letter, so it has to go with the first and third letter. So the side TV. So 3 is corresponding with 9. QR, the first two letters, is corresponding with TU. And the side SR is corresponding with the side VU. Again, I use the color code so we can see them. Now, in this case, actually, let me do write my three fractions. Let me do write my three fractions just because I'm solving for two letters. So from the picture up here, the first one, the triangle QRS, let me write my three sides. I'm going to use my numbers 3, 5, and Z. Okay, 3, 5, and Z. Those three numbers come from the same triangle, right? I know 3 is corresponding with 9, 5 is corresponding with wide, and Z is corresponding with 18. Again, the three numbers from the top come from the same triangle. The three numbers from the bottom come from the other triangle. And then I see one fraction. It's numerical, right? So just numbers, 3 over 9. Guess what? I'm going to use that same fraction twice. I'm going to use that to solve for y, and I'm going to use that to solve for z. So the way I'm going to solve for y, I'm just going to say 3 over 9 is equal to use the fraction that has the y. So basically, I'm going to have 5 over y. 3 over 9 is equal to 5 over y. Let me separate this because I'm looking at this as two different questions. The other question, I'm going to say 3 over 9 is equal to z over 18. 3 over 9 is equal to z over 18. Again, I'm looking at this as two different questions because I have to solve for y and I have to solve for z. So let me cross multiply. Let me solve for y, the question on the left. Let me cross multiply. 3 times y, which is 3y, is equal to 9 times 5, which is 45. So 3 times y is equal to 45. Let me divide both sides by 3. That way I get 1y. 45 divided by 3 is 15. So there, I solve for y. Let me solve for z on this other side here. So 9 times z, which is 9z, is equal to 3 times 18. Now 3 times 18 is 54. Now let me divide both sides by 9. That way I get 1z. 54 divided by 9 is 6. So y is equal to 15. Z is equal to 6. I just type in my answers. There we go. Let's take a look at number 36. Let me see the side QR. Notice I'm using the first two letters, has to be corresponding with the side TU. The side QS, which I'm using the first and third letter, has to be corresponding with the side TV. So I'm going back to the notation just to show if you guys can already see it, what goes with what. Then just, you already know. So, okay, I did color coded so we can see. Let me write my three fractions because I'm solving for two letters, in this case for x and y. Let me look at my first triangle here, the triangle QRS. Let me write the measurements. I'm going to write the 5, the y, and my 7. Those are the three measurements from that triangle. So I know 5 is corresponding with 7.5. My y is corresponding with 9, and my 7 is corresponding with x. I want to break this up so I can see it as two different questions. I'm going to use a fraction that is all numerical. So basically 5 over 7.5. I'm going to use it twice. I'm going to use it to solve for x and to solve for y. So let's see. For me to solve for x, I'm going to say 5 over 7.5. It's equal to 7 over x. Let me set this thing up on the right. 5 over 7.5 is equal to y over 9. And I set my two proportions to know how to solve for x and y. And then I'm just going to cross multiply it. Okay. 5 times x is equal to 5x. 7 times 7.5 gives me 52.5. Decimals are numbers as well, so we're not afraid of them. So 5 times x is equal to 52.5. To get the x by itself, let me separate both sides by 5. 52.5 divided by 5 is 10.5. So x equals 10.5. Good. Now to solve for y, let me cross multiply. 7.5 times y is 7.5y equals 9 times 5, that's 45. So I have that 7.5 times y is equal to 45. Let me divide both sides by 7.5, and I get y is equal to 6. Now looking at number 37, let's see, solve for x. Well, because I know last week we were looking at similar triangles and we showed, there was actually a picture where we show that, let me go with blue. This small triangle is similar to this big triangle. And I know we did improves, we did it by angle, because first we look at angle CAB and then angle EAD, basically the same corner. It was used by both triangles, so we call it reflexive. So we said that corner, both triangles use that corner, so it has to be equal in both. I see they both have a 90-degree corner at the bottom. So by angle, we showed that those two triangles are similar. So having that said, I'm going to use similarity to solve for x here. Now from the red triangle, I'm going to use two values. I'm going to use x and 21. You guys can see x is the side ED. Like I said, the red triangle. I'm looking at the red triangle. And then the side AD, I'm calling the whole side AD 21. Because from A to B is 7, from B to D is 14, so the whole thing is 21. So that's what I'm using from the red triangle. From the blue triangle, x is corresponding with 5. So I'm just going to go x goes with 5. So I'm looking at this side. And then 21 is corresponding with 7. So I'm going to have this. Now let me cross multiply. I like to do the side that has the x first. So I have x on the left side. X times 7 or 7 times x gives me 7x. 5 times 21 is 105. So I have that 7 times x equals 105. Let me divide both sides by 7. So 7 divided by 7 is 1, so that gives me 1x. 105 divided by 7 is 15. So x equals 15. It's going to type in my value, 15. That's nice. Let's take a look at number 38. Same idea. Let me take a look at my red triangle. Red triangle is this big triangle here. I'm going to be using from the red triangle, I'm using the values z and 40. You guys see where z comes from, and 40 is the whole thing here. 10 plus 30 gave me 40. So those are the two values I'm going to use from the red triangle. Now from the blue triangle, so here's my blue triangle, I'm going to use the values 4 and 10. So z is corresponding with 4 and 40 is corresponding with 10. I'm just going to cross multiply. 10 times z is equal to 10z. 40 times 4 is equal to 160. Let me divide both sides by 10. So that gives me that 1z is equal to 16. Same idea for 39 and 40. I'm going to say that the red triangle, the two measurements I'm going to use for my red triangle are 8 and z plus 8. You guys see where 8 comes from. Now this whole thing at the bottom, I don't know what z is, so I'm just going to call it z plus 8. So that's what I'm going to use from my red triangle. Then from my blue triangle, I'm going to use the values 4 and z. You guys would be like, oh man, we have z on both sides. There's two sections that have value z. That's fine, not a big deal. Let me cross multiply. If I cross multiply this way, 8 times z gives me 8z. This is equal to, when I go this way, z plus 8 times 4 is going to give me 4z plus 32. Okay, I multiply 4 times z, so that gave me the 4z. I also multiply 4 times 8. That's how I got the 32. And obviously the plus sign in between them. So don't forget that the number by itself, in this case 4, has to be multiplied with z and has to be multiplied with 8. So that's how I got the 4z plus 32. Okay, let me separate my sides with the equal sign to make things easier. I want to have letters on one side, numbers on the other. So everything that has a letter, I'm going to move it to one side, left or right. It doesn't matter which side, just one side. Personally, I like to move the small letter. So I see 8 and 4. I'm going to move the 4. I'm going to move the small number. It was positive 4 to one side, so it becomes negative 4z on the other side. So I moved letters to the left in this case, and anything that doesn't have a letter, I'm going to keep it on the right. So I keep the 32. So on the left side, 8 minus 4. When I combine my z's, 8 minus 4, that gives me 4z. This is the reason why I moved the smaller z earlier, because I kind of want to avoid negatives if possible. Okay, if I would have moved the 8, 4 minus 8 gives me a negative. Like I said, I want to avoid negatives if possible. So I have 4z on the left. On the right, I only have a 32. So I have that 4 times z equals 32. Let me divide both sides by 4. So I get that z is equal to 8. Okay, not bad. Lastly, let's take a look on my red triangle. So I'm looking at this big triangle. I'm going to use the values 24 and x plus 24. 24 is from the side ED. The x plus 24 comes from this bottom side. X plus 24. If I knew what x was, obviously just combine the numbers, but x plus 24. From my blue triangle, the little triangle that I have here at the corner, 24 is corresponding with 6, And then x plus 24 is corresponding with x. Right? I'm using the value of 6 and x. And now let me cross multiply it. 24 times x is 24x. 6 times x and 6 times 24. Well, I know 6 times x gives me 6x. My plus sign, 6 times 24 is 144. Let me separate my sides with the equal sign. I see x's on both sides. I'm going to move the 6x as a minus 6x. Don't forget to switch the sign. I know 24 minus 6 is 18. So I have that 18x is equal to 144. Now let me divide both sides by 18. 18 divided by 18 is 1x. 144 divided by 18. Use a calculator necessary. I get 8. X is equal to 8. Pretty cool. Pretty simple. Nice.